91. His previous unit assignment included patrol, robbery, homicide, internal affairs. Sergeant Hess is currently the supervisor of the Crisis Intervention Team, CIT unit, where he and his team collaborate with community behavioral providers to provide treatment options to persons living with mental health and substance abuse disorders. He's going to come and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as Chaplain Bill Gorman comes to lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to open this time in prayer. God in heaven, we come before you today and acknowledge our need of your help in the work we gather to do. Would you grant us wisdom, clarity, and understanding? Would you grant us patience and respect for one another? And we ask your blessing on each of the candidates for police chief and on the board as they can continue in their important work of carrying out that new chief. We pray for our city and for each member of this police department. Would you watch over them and care for their families?
Amen.
All who heard.
Oh, you didn't say it.
We're still bowing. You wanted first dibs at the mashed potatoes.
Mayor Lucas, who is your mayor's designee today?
Thank you. Good morning, Bishop. Our designee today is the Mayor Pro Tem of Kansas City, Councilman Kevin McManus from the 6th District of Kansas City, that is South Kansas City. Mayor Pro Tem McManus previously served as a state representative and has served on the city council since 2015.
Good morning. It's good to be here. It is raining cats and dogs right now, so it's pardon my wetness. My name is Kevin McManus. I represent the 6th District. I want to thank the mayor for the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank the board, our interim chief, all members of KCPD for their service. I look forward to working with our new chief and whoever that may be in the coming year. I realize I'm the last of several designees from the mayor to speak. I'm also one of the members who will be termed out in the coming year, so it gives me perhaps more freedom than others to speak candidly as I enter my 8th and final year. But let me say, first and foremost, that I believe in our city. It has been a true honor to represent not just my hometown, but the neighborhoods I've called home my whole life. Of course, a big part of a council member's job is to take criticism, and we are criticized pretty much all the time, no matter what we do. I remember when I got this job that I knew that if you disagreed with me, I would be hearing from you. But what I didn't expect was getting criticism from people who liked and actually maybe even agreed with me most of the time. I have the pleasure of representing my parents, and they've lived in their home for 40 years in Kansas City, and they still let me know when a city tree falls in their yard and when they're leaving brush isn't picked up, which is more often than it should be. But I only mention that to tell you that if I share my thoughts today, please know that my openness is meant to be constructive. It's not meant to take away from the brave individuals who serve selflessly every day. We see you and we thank you for your service. KCPD is our key partner in reducing crime and keeping Kansas City a safe, livable place for all. Our futures are intertwined and interdependent, but the city and KCPD are much bigger than any of us in the room today. Our time here, while important, is temporary. One of the challenges we face is not personal, and it's not personnel, it is structural. Regardless of how you feel about our current system of state control, an inescapable fact is that this structure does what is intended. It separates us. During my time on the council, I have seen how this separation of the budget and management functions, governing the department creates and enables inefficiencies. It slows our collective ability to respond and react. It creates silos of information and barriers to communication. The structural division is just an added challenge that hardly any other city faces. And unfortunately, I don't expect this to change. It will persist regardless of who's in this room because it is structural by nature. The best we can do is try to work through it. And that is a duty on all of us. including me, temporary officers who are called to improve that level of communication and attempt to understand and work through these impediments in order to provide positive change. We have already made a lot of progress in this area. I want to mention three what I perceive to be challenges, but also opportunities for growth and ways we can work together. One of which is budgetary. I think an example of success in our working together is the Community Services Fund from last year's budget. This allows us to communicate more regularly through the year about the progress on various funded initiatives. Recently, the council heard an update on a number of items, including the status of hiring new officers, something we all care about deeply. Even though we learned that most of these amounts had not yet been expended, it was an opportunity for us to learn about the timing of the hiring of new officers that were approved and funded. Another example of success is the recent approval of the new radio equipment, which was done through our last council session. I think that was another opportunity for us to see ways that we could work together in anticipation of this coming year's budget. I believe these two examples show us that we can benefit from more regular reporting, enhanced communication between our bodies. That reporting could come from the new chief on the status of items that were included in last year's budget. And this will improve the council's knowledge base of the issues facing the department, as well as updates on items that were funded at budget time. I think one thing the council could do is provide more time to KCPD in our budget presentation process to provide both an annual look back that compares the budget that was approved versus what was accomplished. In general, the typical 20 to 30-minute budgetary meeting is just simply insufficient in this regard, given the amount of money at stake. There are likely many areas of potential collaboration that improved communication could uncover. One example may be in the areas that are tangential to law enforcement. KCPD is being asked to do more than ever, and more than what is considered traditional law enforcement. And while this presents a challenge, this would be my second opportunity. I think we can find ways to work together. For example, in the south part of the city, like many areas, we have a transient population who often establish housing along our trails and parks. Sometimes these issues require law enforcement. Many times they do not. They require help in terms of mental health or in addiction counseling or in housing. We should be looking ways to partner together better with other agencies and departments. For example, I have lobbied the mayor and our city manager for additional funding for our parks department for improved funding for our park rangers. I believe this would alleviate non-emergency calls to KCPD, and it would then allow us to work with our specialty courts and nonprofit agencies to help get folks off the street and into the transitional housing and services they need. Your input and guidance would be really helpful as we try and make progress on these issues. Another area I think that we could be looking at is in the area of technology and data management. In my first term, we had several presentations from PD and city manager's staff on a new initiative known as One IT. This plan to consolidate the city's and PD's IT divisions. This effort was called as one that would allow us to modernize our technology together and do so with significant savings in software and hardware purchases. I'm told this effort was ended by the prior chief, but regardless, the need in data management persists in both entities. Public entities of all kind are being asked to securely store and timely retrieve data at record levels, and this is extremely costly. I'm curious if the department's current data management and software needs would allow the city to assist in any way in that regard. Effective data and information management is critical both in the clearance of cases and in meeting our constitutional duties. This information can be used it needs to be used quickly as an investigation unfolds, and those responses need to be put out when requests are sent in for open records. This past weekend, I read an email that many of you all received, and it raises some serious questions surrounding the meeting of these obligations. These matters need to be closely reviewed, ideally by an independent agency, so that those impacted and the public know that any deficiencies are being addressed. In the meantime, I want you to know that you have a partner at the city who is ready and willing to work together on data and IT if needed. A final area I just would mention is the area of community outreach and engagement. There are several initiatives KCPD is already working on in this regard, and these are key to building trust, and trust in the police is essential to reducing crime. I was heartened to read our chief's blog yesterday to learn about the newly formed Community Engagement Division. This will oversee social workers, CIOs, CITs, and others. This appears to be a very positive step in this direction. I am looking forward to working with the new chief and understanding and hoping that he or she will understand that leadership begins with listening and that community engagement needs to be a top priority. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. I want to thank you again for your service and your commitment to our community, and I look forward to working with you all in the coming year. And I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you. I'm glad you recognize that we're working together, and we'll do our very best to do more of that.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Guest presentation, KCPD K-9 Friends.
Good morning. I'm Jacqueline Cudahy, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about, make you aware of, and tell you a little bit about our organization, KCPD K-9 Friends. Okay, there we go. There we are, KCPD K-9 Friends. Just tell you a little bit about who we are and make you aware of some of the things we're trying to do. So we are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization, and we were just formed this year. And our sole purpose is to support the active and the retired canines of the KCPD. So if you recall, there was a Friends of the Mounted Patrol organization when we had the Mounted Patrol. And so this is a very similar organization to that. So charitable organization. And if you, sorry, I keep pushing this in. To tell you a little bit about what we do is one of the primary things is we'd like to provide financial support for the retired canines that we have. We have 3 current retired canines. And really this is to go toward their medical care. When a dog is retired, it goes to live with their handler, stays with the handler and their family. And at that point, the officer is responsible for all expenses of their medical care, food, all of that. So as a working dog, you can imagine they might have some higher expenses, some things that they may need care for. And so we want to try to lessen that burden for the officer as much as we can. The other thing we assist with is if there's some unexpected financial outlays. So if something comes up, it's not in the budget, it's an unexpected need there. We want to be able to help with that in any way we can. So now, granted, we're new, we're building our coffers, but we want to be able to help with things like that. So, if there's a need for a new dog, we might be able to provide some assistance with that. And then finally, assisting with educating the public. So the K-9 organization, we want to make sure people understand what the canines do for the city, also for the officers. They protect both. And these are amazing dogs. And so we are very proud to be able to support them. So I want you to introduce you to the boys and girl of the K-9 section. These are our 12 dogs that we have. The female is the one in the bottom left, K-9 Pepper, and she's amazing. They all are amazing. And they all have, it's interesting, they all have their own unique personality, as do their handlers. And we just love all these dogs. They are amazing in what they do. One of the things that is our primary fundraiser, as we are a charitable organization, we rely on the support of members, donors, and our fundraising events. And our major fundraising event this year is we have our K-9 calendar. And we are handing one of those out to each of you on the commission, as well as the chief. We wanted you to be able to see the dogs, see the amazing work that they do, just learn a little bit about them. So we're very proud of the calendar. We got that done this year, and we have been selling those in the department, throughout the community. to raise funds. And we'll be doing this on an annual basis. We're also giving you a little bit of information about the organization. So I want to talk a little bit more about the retired canines. I mentioned that the officer becomes responsible for their care, medical, food, whatever. And when you think about medical expenses, they can be significant. There could be surgeries involved or just other things that have come as a result of being a working dog. So that might be medications, their annual exam, procedures. We have 3 retired dogs at this point. We will very soon have some additional retired dogs due to age, but also with the change in law around the legalization of marijuana, our narcotics and drug dogs, they're potentially the retirement of those dogs and getting different dogs that are not imprinted on marijuana. So we should have a few more, and I wanted to show you. Here's our newest retiree, Canine Roscoe. We had a little celebration for him. He got his own little cake. And so we wanted, we felt this was important, is to celebrate both the career of the dog, but also the handler who, they're partners and there's such a bond between them. And we wanted to just recognize that. So we have our little retirement party for the canine. He liked his cake. So we had human treats as well that he tried to get to, but we kept him away from that. With respect to community relations, there's several things here. The canine unit already does demonstrations for companies, maybe going to schools. We'd like to help with some of that. They also, one of the things is conducting open houses. Sometimes the special operations unit does that, but the canine unit, there's been some training and opportunity where they do these open houses. And we want people to learn about the dogs and what they do for the city, how they help protect us and protect the officers. So it's a great opportunity. These dogs, like I said, are amazing, the things that they can do, and just the dedication they have to their work. The other thing is interaction with kids. As you can imagine, dogs, everyone loves dogs. And so kids see, that's a canine car. They may want, ask about the dog. Can I pet the dog? Which, no. But they can talk with the officer. The officer can share some information with them about that. And then finally, like I said, with the open houses, some of that education for the community. And one of the things we're doing with kind of that outreach to mostly kids in the city, we have trading cards for the kids. So a trading card, you can see kind of like the baseball card for our canines, just tell you a little bit about them, their handler. And it's just something to be able to give to them, kind of a trading card type thing where, if they see more, they can collect those. But it just, I think it just makes the dog more personable to them, even though they can't pet them, they can at least have one of these cards. These are the contacts. This is our board of directors at this point. We will be expanding our membership, and there's a lot of things we want to do in the coming year, and so we will need people to help us with that. So we'll be expanding our membership, trying to get sponsors from organizations and continue our different fundraisers. So finally, we would just hope that you as the commission really support our cause. It's a great cause. Like I said, everyone loves dogs. We want to take care of them as best we can. And that's our QR code to go to our donation site. So give that a plug. But so that's all I have for today. I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that, what we're doing, in case you hear us in the community. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or any comments that you have. Yes.
Would you elaborate a little more on the retiring of the marijuana dogs and how many dogs you're going to need to replace them? That's
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The captain will talk about that.
Currently, so we've kind of planned ahead for this over the last 4 to 5 years. Any new dogs that we've got that are drug canines, we haven't imprinted them, but our older dogs, 5 years in past, we have 3 left. So recently with the law, we've made the decision
For the narcotics aspect of the canine, we are not going to use that dog for that reason because they are imprinted with marijuana. But they are still a functioning patrol dog. So they still will be able to go out, do the patrol function, as in article searches for individuals, things of that nature. So we are looking for different options with replacing those canines because, of course, now we go from having a dual purpose dog to a single purpose dog, and we'd be much better effective if we had dual purpose.
So you will be replacing those 3, is that what you're saying?
As soon as we can identify funding for that, yes, I hope.
Any other questions or comments?
So do you do multiple fundraisers a year or basically just one?
No, we're planning, like I said, we are new and our calendar will be one of our major fundraisers, but we would like to do some other things, some kind of event, some kind of tournament or dog walk, something related to the dogs where other people can bring their dogs and participate and learn about it. So we plan to have a few each year. Any others? Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Community Engagement Division, Major Kari Thompson.
President Tolbert, Board of Police Commissioners, Chief Joseph Mabin Jr., our deputy chiefs, and everyone gathered here today, good morning.
Morning.
It's raining outside, but when I tell you it's 75 and sunny over here, and I'm excited. I'm excited. So a few months ago, Chief Mabin and I met, and he tasked me with a challenge of formulating a divisional model intrinsically focused on improving our outreach, our connection, and our overall relationships with our community. So this is what I came up with. So that's just a little taste of what we have come up with. And if I can just take a little bit of leeway here and give a hand to those men and women that you saw in those videos that were out here serving and serving and serving and serving. And I'm going to give them a hand from here. For all that they did. So the Community Engagement Division goal is to centralize the current amazing service that's already being provided in Kansas City. However, we're not going to be working in silos anymore, and we're going to be working collectively, adding to those nuances of each division. Those division commanders, in their expertise, they know the needs of their division. And their mindset, their mission, their goals, their ideas for their divisions are still going to be played out. We are just going to be adding those little special touches to make sure that we're doing it more collectively and intentionally. The Community Engagement Division personnel even mirrors our community. We are richly diverse. We're a small microcosm of our community and what we serve. So as we look here at our organizational structure, we're going to have an operations sergeant, and that's going to be Sergeant Garen Carter. We're going to have our CIO squad, our crime-free multi-housing squad, our community crisis intervention team squad, our diversity officer. Can we talk a second about that? So we are going to have a diversity officer, an LGBTQIA representative on our department. And I'll stop there for a second. That community and those that represent that community are going to have their needs uniquely met. We are going to address their issues, concerns, and the great members of this community will once again have an advocate that's working to ensure they are informed, they are safe, and they have access to the services that they need. We are fortifying pre-existing relationships and rebuilding relationships that were previously challenged with many of our community partners. Whether they are a violence-free organization, a school, a business, a community group, or a faith-based organization, we are building and fostering greater relationships. And as we look out into our audience, many of those members are here today. And I am grateful for you, family, for that continued support. As we continue on, we are going to work through our special resource group that was formed. We're going to work with this group, and we hope to transcend department-wide the services that we provide. We also have our social services listed there on the organizational chart and our chaplaincy. So we are looking to breathe life and excitement into all of these different groups that are doing amazing work right now. I would like to, if I can, take a little leeway here and thank those that were in the infancy, the beginning of this division, and just say a quick shout out to them. Sergeant Dustin Shearer, Sergeant Sean Campbell, Officer Malcolm Whitelaw, Sergeant Garen Carter, and Sergeant Ashley McConough is going to be the new sergeant over the crisis intervention team as we say bid adieu to Sean Hess, but just for a moment because he'll be coming back as a reserve. Wonder Woman, Christine Reeder. Equally wonderful, Renee Gatewood, Cynthia Crowell, and Kathy Williams, and one of our community advocates, Curtis Wright. So I welcome your questions. We are excited to hit the ground running. This is just a snippet of what we are going to start on, and I hope to come back before you very soon with some great superlatives on what we are doing in the community.
Any questions?
Just have a few quick comments. First of all, thank you, Major, for this work. And thank you for highlighting, I think, that collaborative community work, actually, the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned previously, and how we can have partnerships that help us. Two people I wanted to single out that I think speak to the core mission that you have. Sergeant Hess, it was an honor to see you today, having bumped into you in the community over years now. When I was on the city council and before, I've appreciated your work at CIT, and I think it's foundational to helping build a safer community. So thank you again. And then I see Officer Gordillo in the back. I'd ask you to rise, sir, so the board can see you as well. Yeah, I didn't know if I was saying something bad or not. Now, he recently convened a Hispanic Citizens Academy. I saw you
Yes.
there, Major, a number of others.
Absolutely.
It was outstanding.
Yes, it was.
And I don't say that about events all the time. I think our community members, whether they spoke English or not, felt appreciated, learned quite a bit about the police department, as did a number of young people in a community where our impact can only grow more broadly. So if you continue to push this with more of our officers in our community, I think this will be amazing work. So I thank you, Major. I thank you, Chief, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
So as I'm looking at your diagram here, this division is going to coordinate with social services, chaplains, CIO squad.
Absolutely.
So will there be weekly meetings, monthly meetings? Tell me a little bit about the structure.
As a collective, we are going to meet monthly, and we are going to also meet with that special resource group, which I mentioned, of those partners that are here today, and include every division, all 6 divisions from North, South, Shoal Creek, Metro, Central, East Patrol, wherever we're going to meet. So we're going to have a couple of meetings a month, and I promise they won't be the kind of meetings where you'll be like, okay, this could have been an email. It'll be an actual robust meeting that is actually hitting the ground running. But again, President Tolbert, we are presently doing great work in
Right.
our divisions right now.
Right.
These men and women are rock stars, but we just want to increase upon that and see what we can accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to it. All right. All right. Investigations Bureau Acting Deputy Chief Keith Kirchhoff.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My information will be under tab A in your books. I must start off with an apology. This month's report does not have page numbers on it, so that's my fault. So I'm going to try not to refer to page numbers since there are none, but so work with me. Moving on to the daily homicide analysis report, the blue sheet, which is in front of you. You will see that there have been 166 homicides in 2022 compared with 149 last year. That's up 17 from last year. The 5-year average of homicides year to date is 147, which is 19 up compared to the 5-year average. We have cleared 69 homicides this year. We've also additionally cleared 14 from previous years for a total of 83 cleared cases. And now you should also have a copy of the non-fatal shooting comparison report in front of you. From January 1st to yesterday, December 12th, there were 518 non-fatal shooting victims in Kansas City. Last year, we had 486 during the same time, so it's a 7% increase. In November specifically, we had 31 non-fatal shooting victims as compared to 32 the previous year. It's a 3% decrease. Also, you will note in the slideshow, it shows to be 32. Actually, we have 31. One of those cases was reclassified from a non-fatal shooting to a casualty. Moving on, you will see that 31 of the 31 non-shooting victims, 18 were cooperative. That is 58% of cooperating victims at the time the offense was reported. Black males accounted for the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims with 23, which is 72%. White males were second with 5. Black females were third with 3 victims, and the remaining 1 victim was a white female. The age groups with the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims was 25 to 34 with 12. 17 and younger was second with 8. The age group 18 to 24 was third with 6, and last was 35 to 44 and 45 and older with 3 each. We have identified 4 suspects at the time of this report. 3 suspects were black males, 1 was a white male. Moving on to the recovered firearms report, the department recovered 175 firearms in November of 2022 compared to 173 last year. The 5-year average for firearms recovered is 189. So far, year to date, we have recovered 2,374 firearms. On the next few pages, you will find the monthly case submissions and disposition reports. KCPD submitted a total of 305 cases to county prosecutors during the month of November, 258 to Jackson County, 34 to Clay, 13 to Platte County. Charges were filed in 119 cases during the month. 33 cases were charged in custody. 86 warrants were issued. 21 of those cases were returned for additional work, and 87 cases were declined. The final slide covers adult missing adults reported since May 1st. Specifically, 52 adults were reported missing last month. All but 5 have been located. There were also 67 juvenile runaways reported missing last month. All but 12 of those have been located. For future months into next year, we are working on a more complete report, which will list both adult and juvenile missing report data. And that concludes my report. Have any questions?
Yeah, I would have a question on the tip thing. I mean, it's you got that up to $25,000.
That is correct.
I don't know if you're the person to talk to about that or not, but so that's $25,000, and we also have a program where we um, relocate
Witness protection.
witness protection program. And I guess it was pointed out by somebody in the community that not sure that that part of the program is very well known. Are we, is there any way to kind of emphasize that with, $25,000 tip is a good thing, but if you're going to get shot, it's maybe not that good a thing. But if you can get be protected by when you tip, might be more effective. Is that happening or what's going on?
Absolutely. We have victim advocates, and also the members of our violent crime division are well aware of the funding that's available. And they are, when they reach out to the families during the course of the investigation, that is offered to them.
The community person that spoke to us on Saturday said it's public, the tips amount, but he said the other information is not right there with the tips amount. And it seems like that's something that should not just for internally and explaining to the victims, but to be to someone that was a witness that might not be there when our people are talking to the victim's family or whatever it might be. So I think of a way to make that better known publicly.
Or part of the
Absolutely.
tips thing, because
We could certainly work on that.
I mean, if they don't know there's a witness protection program, you may not be getting the tips.
Yeah, we can certainly work on that.
Thank you.
One more question. It appears that we're having a surge that's kind of haven't had in the last couple of years here at the end of the year. We were doing pretty well in terms of last year's homicide rate, this year's homicide rate. Then all of a sudden, went 3 weeks without a homicide, and then all of a sudden it appears we've had a surge. Is there anything to that? Has there been a surge, or what's going on with the homicide rate? Why is it climbing so much, or do you have any?
There absolutely has been, of recently, we had a nice little a break where we didn't have any for a while. There is no specific group violence or anything that we can point to as a result of that. It's just an unfortunate occurrence.
We can't figure that out. How are we going to stop it?
Well, I know that the men and women of the police department work every day, and as the mayor pro tem and as others have mentioned, community engagement. If you see something, that's it's important, and we continue to work for positive results.
And we have to continue to partner with the community to reduce this violence. I mean, the police department can't do it on its own. So hopefully, like Acting Deputy Chief Kirkhoff mentioned, with the community engagement, with increasing the Partners for Peace collaboration, things of this nature will, bear fruit in the coming year. But you're right, we haven't been able to identify a specific cause for the increase, but it's not specific to Kansas City either. Last year, when other cities were even higher than their record numbers, we stepped down. Now we're kind of lagging behind and stepping up when some of those are coming down. So we have to follow the trend, but it's hard to look at just 1 or 2 months and identify a specific cause. But we are aware of it. That's why we're dedicating resources and community engagement to it.
I might have one other suggestion with that. I share the concern of my colleagues. I think after 2020, which was, of course, a terrible number, but there were many factors that helped contribute to that. I perhaps foolishly believe that with 2021 being down significantly from the prior year, we would continue on that. I understand that hasn't been how it worked out, but I appreciate you all looking for other community collaboration and other areas of assistance. For everyone else's knowledge, I know Commissioner Wagner and I and the chief had the opportunity to visit with the ATF director. During those discussions, Commissioner Wagner, I think, led more than any of us in asking for additional resources, including personnel support from the Bureau that can help us address these concerns, as we've seen in the past, in support of KCPD. I would encourage you, Chief, to continue that request. You can't ask too many times. They got to keep taking our calls, but making sure that we can clear more of these offenses, that to the extent we need support in getting violent people off the streets, that we do that. And I certainly support our efforts to do that. We'll keep doing that from our end of the mayor's office. I know Commissioner Wagner will as well. And I would hope KCPD, with our special agent in charge in this region, continues to push that strongly for an area of support to help stem this rising tide that we've seen.
Absolutely. And the next day after we had our shoot review here, I actually had a meeting one-on-one with the director and with special agent in charge, Winston, and reiterated those requests for additional resources. And so I continue to think that they'll be a good partner moving forward in fighting violent crime.
Thank you.
You know, Mayor, you mentioned that 21 was a down year. A lot of stimulus checks were flying then. And I have continued to say that a lot of our troubles are as economic as they are anything else. So maybe we can figure out how the city can send out some stimulus checks. But anyway, that's just a
But don't
dig
take it from
that's
our
a dig at the mayor. Thank you, Deputy Chief. All right. Lost my place. Patrol Bureau, Acting Deputy Chief Stacy Graves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. Morning.
While he gets the slideshow pulled up, I just want to let you know, working with our social services, we do work with that PPVVC funds through the state. In addition to that, we have shared that information with our partners in Partnering for Peace. We've had those conversations that if and or when some of our crime victims are working with some of these social service organizations, that there is a mechanism in place to contact the violent crime or the detective on their case. And should they need any kind of assistance, that detective could access or request some of those PPVVC funds. That's the funding through the state of Missouri for witness relocation. I mean, anything, changing locks, like our social services and our detectives have done a lot of things and utilize those funds to assist crime victims.
I guess the question,
It should be publicly known. Is that what you mean,
Yes.
sir? Yeah, I agree.
Is it, since you brought it up, is it easy to access those funds, or do you have to go through a number of, I'll use the adjective, not you, but there are bureaucratic steps that you need to go through to access them?
There are bureaucratic steps, and usually it's a reimbursement.
But we have funds on hand
Mhm.
to where if someone identifies the needs, we will take care of it. We will do the paperwork and get reimbursed for the state. So it shouldn't be a barrier for the actual victim or witness. We'll take care of this stuff on the back end.
Yeah,
Because
we fill that paperwork out.
Understood. Because I forget the full number, but the state of Missouri has a certain amount of funds. Our department's actually the best, I believe, in the state of accessing those funds, but it is still just something that perhaps for the reasons Commissioner Wagner has mentioned, they're just not accessed at the level we may like. But thank you for that information.
Okay, this is our calls for service. In November, the 911 call center, which includes police, fire, EMS, 911 hang-up calls, et cetera, received 74,608 calls for service, approximately 10,000 less than last month. Officers were dispatched to 17,513 calls for service, which means our communications personnel and other agencies assisted in the redirection of over 57,000 non-emergency calls.
One of the people that wrote in for public comments for this meeting said about a woman who was being pursued. And while she's running, she's trying to call 911 and all she got was a busy signal. Is that,
And I read the same thing. I was going to bring that up.
that is a real concern. So, I mean, I appreciate that we've got the numbers from the call takers, but are they getting busy signals? I didn't know 911 ever had a busy signal.
Niemeyer?
She's not getting a busy, I mean, she can get as many places. She may get a recording that says you're next in line to, if we don't have a dispatcher, if every single line is full, then she's going to get a recording that says stay on the line, don't hang up, because then you get it's a 911 system that comes in, because if you hang up, then you go back down. So I'll just give you an example, and this doesn't happen all the time, but if there's a major event that's happening or something happens and we get 5 calls on one incident, that's going to take up 5 call takers on one incident. But it's not a true busy signal is what we would describe as a busy signal. She's getting that recording. But I would like to know if we can contact.
I would
that
like for
person.
you to yes,
Right.
there's contact information in
Okay.
the, when they write in for public comments. Bethany has all of those.
Okay.
But I would like for that person to understand what the issue is. And, it's disturbing. I mean, people ought to be able to, they plan when they call 911, somebody's going to answer.
And if I may follow up, and I don't know if this is your section or yours, I know you know a lot about it. And I know Deputy Chief True used to talk about it, so maybe this is your segment. But, I continue to have a view, and money comes up all the time. But for our dispatchers, if it is a dispatcher's numbers type thing, I mean, how much does it cost calculated out to pay them an extra $4 or $5 an hour? I know they're not starting at that high of a level, just so we could staff up to make sure people aren't waiting on hold for 911 calls. Of the complaints that myself, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilwoman Laura get, that probably has to be one of the most significant ones. A lot of things that we're not perfect on, no doubt, but people waiting on hold on 911 gives our community grave concern. And it's almost something that I would really love for us to try to address almost immediately. And Deputy Chief Niemeyer, I don't know how much it costs just to do that for them, but.
Well, we have addressed, last year, we addressed that issue specifically.
Yes, we did.
Every single person that works in that unit was giving a reclassification besides the raises that happen. I go to the communications unit most of the time 2 to 3 times a week. So when we talk about the money side, we addressed that last year and we continue to address it. So the issue becomes is volume, right? I think most of you have been back there. All of us have been back there. It's the volume and the amount of constant phone calls coming in, the constant of the dispatch and things like that. So that's the thing that I hear is the struggle, right? Is the amount of work. So I say it all the time. We're processing. I think we have 2 right now that have been given. We have 5 in background. It's a constant to do that. Now, we'll say this also when it comes to the personnel there. The personnel that actually begin to work in our communications unit, and they have been there for a few years, are the first that most of my colleagues right here, when they have an opening, they're like, hey, I'll just give an example. We have one that's going to go to our social worker program. Well, then we lose that person out of our communications to another job. And I've been a huge proponent of never holding someone back if they want to continue on within the organization. We've had another with social media analyst, I believe. So, we gain and then we fall. We gain and then we fall. But I think I'll give a little plug to, this is an opportunity. This is a job that if we can get people to come in to this department and begin as a call taker, it opens up an opportunity where they can transfer other places within the department. I don't know if that answers where we're at specifically, but I don't disagree. I say this all the time. If my daughter needs to call 911, I want the phone answered. I'm with you.
Well, and the other question that I've asked the last 2 meetings is about childcare for people who are in that position. And of course, they're working 24 hours a day. And I know that the department is working on figuring out a way to provide that, or to at least not to have it available. I'll put it that way.
How many call takers are we down right now in order
It's
to be fully
20
staffed?
in the I'll have to I'll pull that up so I'll have it before it gets to my spot so I can find it in the book, but 20
It's
ish.
been down 20 for the last couple of years. And so
Right.
I talked to Full Employment Council a few weeks ago because, I was there. I've been working on this, and they said 7 out of 25 people that they sent through passed the initial screening. So that's why I was asking, how tough is the screening? And, did we ever get away from doing the lie detector test?
Yeah, it's the voice analysis, but where we get through, and I think this is probably Major Gates's area now is Major Hicks areas. They go through our screening area and then we place them back into HR for their background. And I think that's where we have lost most of our applicants is in the background process. Not what you asked me months ago about that screening process.
Yeah.
If they get the voice analysis, if they don't pass that or the critical, they get an opportunity again. We've done that. And then,
But
but then it goes on, the last thing they get is their background.
But when we send 25 people and only 7 of them get through, it says that maybe we've got to rethink this whole process, because if people were, and I've given my personal testimony that hurts me every time I think about it. My youngest brother called 911. It's on record. He called 911 twice, had not a seizure, but an asthma attack. And before anybody could get there, he passed away. So, and that's one of the reasons that I was saying, rather than just gripe like everybody else, I'd do something about it. But we have not stayed consistent on fixing that problem. So when I saw that in our public comments, again, it raised the red flag for me. And, I don't know what we need to do, but maybe we need to come down and have a meeting just about how we deal with call takers.
Well, and I'd like to know about the background checks, because if it's something like, we heard today from the canines that we have to have a dog that doesn't use marijuana anymore. Well, if there's something on there about people using marijuana, I mean, that's got to be changed, because that's not,
Legalize.
it's been legalized and it shouldn't disqualify someone. So I'd like to know how they end up being disqualified in their background checks. Now, I certainly want our call takers to be honest, like everyone
Absolutely.
else on our department, but I'd like for that to have a critical look.
And like I said, they come through us and they go to HR, and I don't have it. I'm trying to get someone to send it to me right now, the exact amount that come to the communications unit. We do our part, and then how many move on and how many we pass along to HR.
Good morning. Yeah, let me, so I worked in Doug's office before I was assigned to where I'm at now, but the hiring process for the call takers is somewhat complicated. They have to go through an interview process and a critical test with the communication staffing, and then they come to us for the rest of the process for hiring. But let me look at that specifically and see where those either delays are or elimination pieces are to see what we can do. The critical test is difficult. They are allowed multiple times to pass that because it requires some typing skills. And you have to be able to type somewhat quickly because you are receiving information from somebody that's under stress and in a critical incident. So it's important that they have those typing skills. And maybe we look at if they had that ability to think quickly, maybe we just give them the typing skills they need and just maybe reevaluate some things. But something else came to mind that I'll talk to Chief about. But yeah, let me look at that, and then next month we'll bring back a report on
Can
where
you give us
we
a
see
step-by-step sheet?
break it
and
down
not
and where the
next month?
timelines.
Can we have it next week?
We can do all that next week.
Yeah.
Next week it is.
And I'm going to add this, and Bishop, thank you for bringing up. I mean, that 7 out of 25 number is something, particularly for the starting pay at which the position is. And so I would love for us to evaluate this. I appreciate what we've done on the money. I truly do. I think that's important and vital. That being said, and maybe sometimes I'm just not a nice person in connection with these, there are call dispatchers in every community around us in Kansas City. Poach them. People are trying to poach our officers every single day,
Yeah.
right? Independence is sending memos to our officers offering this amount of money or that amount of money, every jurisdiction. Story in the New York Times this weekend about how there are departments all around the country that are trying to steal NYPD officers and just offering them amazing amounts in cheaper cities. I have no idea why we wouldn't do the same when we're blessed to be surrounded by all these other jurisdictions. We now have no residency requirement. And so nonetheless, right, I would just say, find your agency, find the agencies that pay less for dispatchers, call them all, say, we will pay you more starting here. And if we need to come to this board and say, we'll figure out $5,000 bonuses, then we do it. I mean, I think layering those sorts of things, figuring out how they get through a background check is the sort of thing that we can do, at least certainly with dispatchers. Kind of want us to do the same with officers, but I'll wait till a later presentation with that. But if you could let us know in your research about kind of that sort of thing too, would be helpful.
Well, and don't we have some sort of a bonus that the dispatchers get if they get they refer somebody to us?
If somebody is referred into the process, that's not to the dispatcher themselves. That's to another dispatcher could refer a dispatcher to be hired, and yes, then they do. And I actually have the numbers now in front of me. I got
Okay,
it.
well, just a second. I want to talk about that because
Right.
our dispatchers know the stress that that job requires and the skills it requires. And they're smart people. So if they know someone else who has those skills and would be good, they should be referring them to us and we should reward that. Go ahead. Numbers that you had.
So of the applicants, there were 66 applicants. 20 after they applied, 28 of those applicants did not show up or did not respond to our phone calls back to. So over a third right off the bat put in an application and it was no call, no response. There was only 5 that failed the critical, or passed the critical, but they actually failed their interview portion. Of those that passed the critical and that we ended up finally getting to us was passed critical and interview, but then was eliminated by HR was 11. There's the number that was eliminated by HR. So, yeah, there's a significant amount too, and that's why I had them break this down from each month because we'd been talking about this. I have them break down exactly where each person in the process, if they don't make it through the process, where that part of the process they were eliminated. So there was a very intense conversation with Major Hernandez because he's over communications, and he said, "Well, hold on a minute. Part of that is we may have the 66 applications, but a third of those are never. We call them to come in, and there's no response or no callback, and we have a member of our staff that does just that. And it's not just one phone call, it's repeated phone calls to attempt to set that up. So those numbers are I've had them do those. And I'll make sure from this point forward that you get these monthly so that you have them.
I'd like them to be better numbers.
I just like to clear up. So we're going to have more or less a little task force look at this issue, and we'll have a good report back next month. I mean, you're going to report some of it back next week, but could we do that, Joe, and get a good report next month?
Yep, we'll
Thorough
take care of it.
report.
Absolutely.
Some way to solve the communications issue of being short 20 staff members.
We'll definitely present some ideas.
Thank you.
Well, and we've got a partner, Full Employment Council. They were ready to actually set up classes. I went to 2 or 3 meetings, and it seems like somebody's dropped the ball and hadn't followed through with it. So,
And yeah, if, like you said, if they need skills training in typing or whatever it is, we could figure out places to get that done. Community College, Full Employment Council.
absolutely. Sorry, we
No
hijacked your
worries.
report.
No, I like the, I
But
enjoyed
you
the
brought it
discussion,
up.
actually. So just to circle back on the childcare conversation.
Yes.
I did receive a memorandum from a sergeant who is looking into bringing childcare to Kansas KCPD. I will report on that as soon as I can. It was a little bit of a research memo, like what information has been looked at, whether other police departments around the United States has a similar setup, but that is an ongoing conversation and forward movement on that project.
Can I say
So
this
has that
for,
been changed from you?
No, Acting Deputy Chief Graves had some information that she referred to earlier on that. So we were both aware of that same information. And just to piggyback off that, we've had some additional, since the last board meeting, internal discussions on what that could look like, and maybe even some potential partnership, like a overall first responder partnership. So it's not just police, because we have to make this a viable facility for whoever was operating that. So potentially a partnership with fire and other partners of the city that have 24/7 shift work going. So we're digesting that information now, and then maybe looking when the holidays were over to reach out and to our public safety partners and see if there's maybe even an overwhelming need that someone could take that as a somewhat private business venture, but it's specifically for public safety. And so that's where our discussions were right after the board meeting last time. And then we'll continue to look into it and hopefully have something. We're hoping to have maybe, get something in place or at least the discussion started. We think it's probably going to take a partnership and get those discussions started as soon as the holidays are over.
But the both of you are going to work on that.
Yes.
And I would encourage you this. I mean, there have been conversations at the city that I think need to move even further to Deputy Chief Luster's point. This is just a dramatic need, and a place for collaboration could be very much the city letting a contract, an RFP, to have somebody handle these types of services, and then offering opportunities for our first responders, other city staff that are working at all hours, that sort of thing. Because I think it's the sort of thing that as soon as it opens would be fully subscribed. Any of us with young children know that challenge right now.
Right.
And so thank you for the work with it. And if people say it's too challenging or they haven't figured it out for this budget year, just push back and say the board and the mayor, I am on the board, right, are very interested in that going somewhere.
And we'd be happy to have different locations. I mean, obviously, the call takers are here, but we have 24-hour people all over the city. And as you point out, the fire and that sort of thing, maybe the hospitals, who knows? But it's important.
Well, we kind of made a list of, what the obstacles that we need to overcome. And one of those is real estate. Where do we put this? And I think we have some possibilities there.
All right, sorry.
Our response to priority 10 calls are down from 8.07 minutes to 7.85 minutes. The ideal time to respond to a priority 10 call is 7.55 minutes. Last month, sorry, I feel like I'm trying to talk fast after that. I apologize. Last month, the Patrol Bureau reviewed the deployment of our law enforcement personnel, taking into consideration staffing shortages, creating potential officer safety concerns, increased response times, and overtime expenditures. On December 4th, our uniformed proactive patrol officers were redeployed back into sectors to assist in the staffing shortages of those assigned to respond to 911 calls for services and emergencies. There were community concerns that the proactive patrol officers were being redeployed to other parts of the city or away from their division stations. For example, last week, I spoke at Northland Neighborhoods, or NNI, regarding the staffing changes and explained that, for example, Shoal Creek Patrol Division was short a certain number of law enforcement personnel dedicated to responding to emergencies. With this redeployment, the division is now just short a couple officer positions and all sergeant positions are filled. So actually, our proactive were folded into their own respective patrol division stations to answer 911 calls for service. So all the proactive patrol officers were redeployed to sectors within their respective division stations. The measure was taken citywide, and as a result, there are more patrol officers in cars readily available to respond to emergency calls for service throughout the city because of this measure. So,
Go ahead.
well, I'm hoping that there will be even a better result in our response times next month.
I'd like, in the numbers of how long it takes to respond, I'd like to know how long people are on that call recording before they talk to someone.
Okay. We can get that for you.
Thank you.
For sure. And then traffic crashes and fatalities. While traffic crashes are slightly down from 2021, fatality accidents are up from 74 to 80 in 2022. Wearing your seatbelt, driving sober, and at safe speeds significantly reduces the chances of being involved in a fatality accident. Last month, we also discussed several dangerous incidents involving street racers and sideshow participants in our city. These dangerous activities have led to fatal accidents involving drivers, participants, and innocent bystanders. Since we met last month, KCPD commanders and officers met and discussed ordinance changes and other proactive measures to reduce these dangerous events. Director Shaw from the City Public Works has been a driving force for preventative street and traffic measures to reduce street racing and sideshow activities. Director Shaw has had pucks installed at several intersections to avert sideshows and dangerous driving where people do donuts in our most populated areas. Director Shaw is collaborating with KCPD to identify 50 additional intersections to install pucks and also cameras to ensure roadway safety for Kansas City motorists bicyclists, and pedestrians. I wanted to recognize Director Shaw for his quick response in taking action and assisting with solutions to this issue, and I look forward to working collaboratively on many more initiatives with city leaders. During this time of year,
Just a second.
sure.
One of the other public comments that came in to our office was about street racing. And they asked if there wasn't a safe place that those people could go. And I know several months ago, someone talked to us about a safe place for them to do that. Do people just want to use the public streets instead of going to a safe place?
Excuse me, but the mayor and I had a talk with a young man on Saturday at the meeting, and we're working on that. He's sending a proposal.
Okay.
He has located a space, and so we're going to meet with him about that.
Good. Thank you.
During this time of year, our patrol division stations adopt families, participate in community holiday events, and have fun hosting events for the communities we serve. On December 1st, South Patrol officers participated in a Cram the Cruiser where donations were stuffed into a patrol vehicle to provide to children and their families. On December 16th, South Patrol is hosting a movie night showing Polar Express. On December 17th, East Patrol is hosting a ham and turkey giveaway with toys. Our social services team is participating in a Because We Care South KC event, a PAL holiday event, amongst others. All that to say, our members are involved in responding to emergency calls for service, but also trying to make this time of year a little extra special for the people that we serve. On the agenda, it does show that we have a social services program, but we do not have a presentation for that. So if you have any questions for me.
I just want to commend you on the traffic issue, the sideshows. I think that's been very well received by the public. It was something that we've heard quite a bit on, and so thank you for working proactively. Well, you gave great credit to Director Shaw, and we appreciate that. I want to credit you, I believe Major Jackson, others who were involved with that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Administrative Bureau and Acting Deputy Chief Daniel Gates.
Good morning again.
Morning.
You'll find my items under tab C. Department staffing as of November 30th, 2022. The department has 1,669 employees as compared to 1,697 the same time last year in 2021. Currently, we have law enforcement staffing of 1,131 members, which compares to 1,159 in 2021. That 1,131 number does not include the current 27 academy recruits we have going through the academy at this time. Department-wide, including civilians, we are a total of 205 vacancies short or have current vacancies of 205. Also, for online reporting, just to give you an update on that, in October, we had 936 online reports filed. And then in November, we had 821 online reports. Those numbers are up from June and July, so they continue to grow. And we look at that as a good alternative for getting that report on file and not having to type an officer with it. So we're excited about those numbers. And that's all I have to report unless you have questions.
Yeah. One of the things that we heard from one of the other police departments in the country is, we're very shorthanded on officers, and they utilize, and I know it's not the only location that does it. I've heard about two of them now that utilize retired officers to a large extent, and I think we're precluded from doing that by maybe our pension plan. And I just would like to understand if that's feasible for us, and if not, what has to happen? Do we need a change in the pension or in the state law or whatever to enable us to be able to utilize retired officers? And would it potentially solve a huge issue for us with our 205 short department?
Our retired pool of officers is large, and I think their skill set there would help us. I know a lot of what we do in communications now through alternative handling might be some assistance there, but maybe we could speak more specifically in the closed session as to how you'd like to see them utilized, and we can kind of research that to see what we can and can't do.
Well, I'd leave it to you to tell me how to utilize them, but at 205 vacancies, I would think we could utilize them in lots and lots of different ways.
There is a slight concern at transitioning a retired police officer to our civilian staff because they don't contribute to the civilian pension system. So there are some concerns about that. But we do roll retired officers into other spots if they're the best fit or the most qualified applicant. But yeah, we'll look at that some more.
I think part of the issue was we were trying to, if you keep them down around 900 hours per year, then they're not classified as a full-time employee, so they wouldn't be required necessarily to contribute to a lot of those programs, nor would we have to provide them the same kind of benefits.
I mean, it was definitely part-time
Part-time.
was the discussion, and that's what I was concerned about. I mean, if we could, I mean, we're so short-handed. I mean, so we read about that a lot. And if we could utilize part-time retired officers for certain situations, it seems like it might be extremely helpful. So, and I don't think we can do it, like he said, without maybe making a change in the pension plan, something like that, which I think we could get done. Everybody else does it.
Let me collaborate a little bit with Colonel Meyer. We'll look at some options and we'll get back with you.
Okay.
And I believe Springfield, Missouri is one such city that has taken on that type of program. So maybe they have given some model, because I imagine they have pensions too and all of that. So.
Thank you.
Naples, Florida, I know does it a lot.
Can you also, in a separate you're already doing the research relating to 911 dispatchers. I made the point relating to bonuses and other things to entice folks to join police departments that's happening all around us. I would appreciate you evaluating that with officer recruitment as well. If it is worthwhile for this board to consider, I think it would be, but I'd like your answer. Either stronger retention bonuses or any type of attraction bonus, the sort of thing that we're seeing people do to us, or even offering a comparative reciprocity so that before one of our officers get poached by an Independence or Raytown, some of the others that have been offering these things, we actually at least say, we'll match that. And then of course, everybody will ask for it, but nonetheless, evaluating what that may look like.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's in one of our decision packages for the budget already presented to the city. That's exactly what you're talking about.
What's the cost and the estimate of it for us? Just
Well, the original one that Commissioner Kramer asked for is right at 13 million.
And what's that do?
I believe it's 8,000 for a retention for the officers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a sign on. So if an officer signs on, it's 7,000 over the course of 3 years. So they will be paid each of the first 3 years that they're here, and then that'll add up to that $7,000. But the 8,000 is for each officer that's here. But that is a request in our budget that we have sent to the city.
And 7,000 over the 3 years.
I believe it's 3 years. I think Commissioner Kramer is the one that asked me to research that a few months ago before we started in on looking at things for the next year. And basically it is the same as what Independence has.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Executive Services Bureau, Deputy Chief Doug Niemeyer.
Everything for executive services under tab D. Item A is our monthly budget transfers. I request the board's approval to transfer $4,080,000, which is all within personnel services, and $150,000 within commodities. These transfers are moving salary from one spot to another salary position, which is Central Patrol, RIT, as well as the separation pay during our retirements here in December. That's all within the same fund. It's transferring those to Central Patrol where we were short of salary funding. The Police Drug Enforcement Fund 234 is to transfer $49,474 in personnel services and $20,000 from contractual service to commodities to purchase minor equipment. And this is to close out the year-end funds. As you all know, with many of these grants, we estimated at the beginning of the year, this is going to be closing out those funds within Fund 234, as well as the police grant 239. We're transferring 50,000 from personnel services and 7,500 from capital outlay to contractual services and $7,500 to commodities. And again, these are being transferred to where the appropriations are needed now compared to where we estimated them at the beginning of the year, a year ago. So I would request the board's approval on these transfers.
May I ask a question for you real quick, Deputy Chief?
Yes, sir.
I see that of the money we're transferring out of personal services, looks like 2.29 million is coming from health and life insurance. That's just the lower numbers we have on staff now. Do you know?
So it's a multitude of things and you'll see later on whenever I talk about another fund, we changed. Department members could choose different health plans this year. Some of it's that. Some of it is, yes, we have less. The other thing is we originally, when we estimated our health care cost, if you remember, we negotiated that last year and made it less. So we had more in that fund. So there's a multitude of things that has caused that. Plus, with retirements, we're not paying out as much money in that healthcare fund. So that's where we're taking it. It's all within personnel services, though, that it's going back to the police officer or the officers and detectives.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Item B is the special revenue accounts. I request $565,035 be appropriated from the unappropriated fund balance into the special services funds. These transfers are for our employees with our flexible spending. You can have flexible spending within your insurance. This is to have them to have that opportunity. And the other is to shore up our minor equipment fund so that it'll be funded through the end of the fiscal year. And as you can see, they're there on item B. I'd request the board's approval for that.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor by sign of aye.
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 All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Item C is a bid number 2023-15, which is our police uniform contracts. It was the recommendation of the fiscal unit that this contract be split between Galls LLC, GT Distributors, and Baysinger's Police Supply. In doing this, we will save about $38,000 a year by doing this and getting the best price from these vendors. The total project cost is $311,594.27. This is a one-year contract with these companies with the option to renew for 4 additional one-year contracts, and I'd request your approval on that.
Yeah, and I commend you all because when I looked at that and saw that you were able to split it up, get the best prices, that was brilliant. Job well done.
Thank you.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved in second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Item D is the Lexapool Solutions contract. The board heard a presentation from Acting Deputy Chief Luster and Lexapool back in October. At the board meeting, it was requested for us to move forward with that. That contract, the initial cost, it will be $169,885.88. This contract will begin on January 1, and it will go till May the 31st. At that point, we will renew the contract in order to get it in line with our annual budget. And then it'll be a yearly cost of $94,526.10 per year. And I would request the board's approval for us to enact that contract with Lexington.
So before we approve that, how do we track who's taking the training and whether they complete the trainings and those kind of things?
As part of the package that they're giving us, there's they call it the knowledge management system, which is the kind of the dashboard for every member of the department. But it allows supervisors and management to produce reports that track that when our personnel have acknowledged the policies and procedures, and then it also shows the completion of the daily training bulletins as well. So all that is integrated into that dashboard and very easily, when I say easily, a couple of clicks to access those management reports.
So what's the consequences if those who should be taking the training don't take the training?
Yes, so we'll treat that just as we treat policies now, that they have the time frame per policy where they're exposed to acknowledge receipt of that policy. We'll do the same thing with the daily training bulletins. When talking with Lexipol about the daily training bulletins, they suggest that we scale it so we're not just, all of a sudden telling our officers, you have 30 of these a month to review,
Correct.
that you scale it at first to where it's just, maybe 1 or 2 a week until they get used to the platform, used to completing the bulletins. It's really, they make it easy that you can do it on a phone, on the computer in the car, or on a computer at your assignment. But their recommendation is you scale that, and then we will address that when it comes time for that actual policy to they have to be completed. When you receive them, they have to be completed within a certain amount of time.
And the commanders will then make sure that.
Yes, we do that now with the policies where we run reports and to make sure that the policies are being acknowledged.
So my last, and someone else may have some questions, but my last question is, there is a question on the letter from, I think it's from Rosie.
Yes.
And on number 2, it says, based on the clause that Lexipol owns the policies, would we be unable to retain those policies if the relationship was ever ended? Would we have to basically start over and create all new policies? And so then there's a yes, and it says to retain, and no to start over. But then the explanation says, if an agency discontinues with the subscription, the manual is PDF and is given to be used internally. However, we keep the manual in our system, given the agent's ability to come back. So what I'm reading is they say they still own it. So do we own at least what they have given us as PDFs?
Yes, I think
we
it's
can still utilize them.
when talking with her, it's a poorly worded sentence.
It is.
So when she says yes, she's saying yes to that they own those. However, we, as she goes on to say, we get to keep what's already been done in PDF form. So we wouldn't have to start over if we decided to terminate our relationship with them. We still have policies in place, that manual. She's saying we wouldn't have the system anymore. We wouldn't have the services we're buying with the dashboard, the knowledge management system, the daily training bulletins. But no, we would get to retain what is in existence. They would be ours. It was just, I think that first yes was kind of, yes and comma was kind of poorly worded. We would not have to start over. They hand everything that's current in a PDF file to us, and we have those.
Holly caught that in the original version of the contract and made a change to it to make sure we get to keep it.
Okay.
And we also have access to post it online in the interest of transparency so that this
Right.
community can see what our policies are.
So this particular clause made it seem like, oh, you wouldn't have to start over because we still own it.
No.
Yeah, we get that, but we want to make sure that those things that we have already PDF'd and printed, they're not saying, oh, you can't use those now.
No, there are.
Because you don't have a contract with us anymore.
No, we had the same concern you did,
All right.
Commissioner, and that I think that settled that. Obviously, they have, I think, what they said, 8,100 clients
Right.
nationally. So it's
Right.
yeah, I think if they said nope, it's all ours, we got to start over. I don't think they would have 8,100 clients anymore.
All right, any questions from any other board members? All right. All
I
right,
move approval.
Second.
it's been moved and second. All in favor by sign of aye.
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 All opposed by no.
Are we hearing
Ayes
Dawn?
have it. I hear Don every once in a while. Hi, Don.
Aye. Okay.
Heard you that time.
All right.
Item E is renewal of claim services provider. This is a request for the Board of Police Commissioners to renew the contract with Gallagher Bassett Services for workers' compensation claims services. The overall cost for that is $548,023.11. This is based off of previous year's monthly expenditures with an additional 3% per claim cost increase. I would request that the board approve this.
I move approval.
Second.
We moved in second. All in favor by sign of aye.
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 All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
And my final item is radio discussion. I apologize for not being here at the last board meeting to discuss that, but I would like to say the reason I wasn't here is my father retired after working for 54 years.
Wow.
And I was not here. This might be the first time he's ever watched a Board of Police Commissioners meeting. So
Hope he likes it.
Well, I'm not for sure, sir, but I'm sure I'll get a phone call tonight. So I was not here to discuss this last month because I was spending time with my dad.
Yeah.
So anyway, radios is my last discussion. This has been a long project. There's been a lot of people put a lot of hard work and effort into that. And before we get into it, I know she will be watching, but I want to thank Tammy Queen. Her and I have worked closely together on this across the street and with the city for many, many, many months now, and a lot of people within our organization and the city. So this week, as many of you know, the city passed an ordinance, and I will read the supplemental appropriation at this time. The department received $19,072,000 as provided on a December 8th, 2022 city ordinance number 221063 to purchase our radio equipment. That's an up to amount. The city will issue special obligation bonds in the spring of 2023, and the department will annually appropriate monies for the payment beginning in the fiscal year 23-24, and that will be made over a 10-year period with funds from our general revenue. It is requested that the board authorize the department to establish a following fund: revenues and appropriations pursuant to the transfer of those supplemental appropriations from the city, which is listed there on this piece of paper, in the amount of $19,072,000. So it'd be my request that the Board of Police Commissioners accept their ordinance and accept that.
We're accepting the ordinance, and we're accepting that amount of money to be paid to us over time, right?
They are going to appropriate that money to us now.
All right. I move that we approve that.
I got one little question about it. The way this is written, it says supplemental appropriations affect the department's budget as follows, and it adds $19 million to the budget. And I don't think that's what we meant. I think we meant, buy it, and we're gonna pay it. We're gonna pay for it. We're gonna pay for it at the rate of over 10 years. In other words, 19 million or whatever the number ends up being divided by 10. And so the budget is not 252 plus 20 or whatever, 252 plus 2. If you see what I'm saying.
Yes, sir, I understand. Initially, it will be coming back. We will be paying. What they're doing is giving us the money, and the mayor may be able to, he's shaking his head. So they're giving us the money now to implement this contract, and then we will be obligated starting 23-24, whatever. I can tell you confidently it won't be 19 million, but it will be, that's an up to amount. So next year's budget, it will be. So I think the best way to describe this is I agree with you when this first started, and I think this is where it stalled was our stance was we would have liked the city to have just purchased the radios originally, and it all stayed there. This is in the last month or so after we had a discussion a few board meetings ago, this is where city finance and council got to is to appropriate it to us. We make the contract, we pay the amount in full, and then we will be obligated back to the city over the course of time when
I
they
understand
do their
that.
bonds.
I'm just objecting to the word budget in this.
Okay.
So is the city charging us interest?
Short answer is probably yes.
Probably paying what it costs.
Because, I mean, I think the deputy chief explained it, and and I don't want to get in trouble by over explaining it, but nonetheless, right, the city's creating in the police budget a special obligation fund, because this is how Tammy, the finance director, is going to fund it. They're going out on the market, going to, right, then pay. The funds will then be encumbered as to this fund exclusively, which is under the control of the police department and the Board of Police Commissioners, but it sits on the city's books as this fund, right? And that's.
Well, it's got to come in on our books as
Right,
well.
exactly.
But it needs to be in this fund. That's why we want to establish this fund. Because it will be in that fund.
So it's in lieu of a lease. We were going to lease from
that's
Motorola.
Right.
So instead of us leasing, we're leasing it from the city now and paying the city back.
Well, not really. What we're doing is creating a new fund.
Right. I get that, but in essence,
We're paying for it over time, but it's not a lease. Will own it.
right.
It's like a loan, basically.
But
I
we
just want to
can't
make sure it's
encumber-
not a payday loan.
Well, we can encumber money over time, which the city can do. That's how they're
Subject to annual
dancing around
appropriation.
that requirement.
Yeah, you got it. Good work.
Okay, all right.
So Donna,
All right, yeah, okay.
It's the memorandum of understanding is how we pay it back.
right.
That's next.
All right.
So
New account.
yes.
New account. I move we approve creating a new account.
Second.
Been moving second. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
The
Now, do
second,
we also have to move
We
how
have to
we
do-
pay for
Yes,
these?
there
so
there
the-
are two more
there's
things.
two more items.
All right.
Let's see, where did I put? The next item is the MOU. As we know, on Saturday morning, the board voted for an MOU. That was sent back to the city. The city asked that there be a couple of small changes as well. I think you've had an opportunity to see those changes, and I believe we need to have a vote by the board to accept the new MOU that was then returned to the board from the city with their changes.
So what we're voting on is the MOU provided to us by the city.
The most recent
Most
version, after we sent the red line version back
Yes.
from Saturday over the weekend. Once again, thank you to all the folks that worked on this MOU. That was not me, to get this to where it is, and we can all agree that this will work.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
And then the last item on the radios is, there's nothing to look at here, but we have been in negotiations for some time, especially after, well, not some time, we've spent 3 full days negotiating the contract. The contract is not complete. It will be completed and has to be completed by the end of the year. I would request approval from the board that we are allowed to execute a contract up to this amount in order to purchase those radios. Otherwise, we'll need to have another special board meeting if I'm not mistaken. But you're agreeing that we can have a contract up to the amount that was just allocated.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I might take next month board meeting off.
Took a lot of time.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Professional Development and Research Bureau.
Yes.
Deputy Chief Luster? All
Yes,
right.
sorry,
Okay, there's where you told me
Yes,
there
sir.
was another name. All right.
Travel plans change
Gotcha.
nowadays, so wasn't going to be here, but here I am. You will find my information under tab E. First thing is the Academy update. As I think you're all aware, the 175th entrant officer class graduated on November 18th. Total of 28 officers, with 15 of those being for KCPD. So they are excited to be out, and they're with their field training officers now. The 176th entrant officer class started on October 16th. Total of 39 entrant officers, 26 of those being KCPD. week 9 of that academy, and I'm happy to say 26 KCPD, and that's where we remain. So we're working hard on that retainment piece within the academy. We're slated for another class to start on the 24th of January. That'll be the 177th infantry officer class, and waiting to see what the numbers look like for that class. HR is still currently working to get officers for that. If not any questions on the academy, I'll move on to the projects from the Research and Development Division. The first is project number 1319. It's 2 personnel policies, limited duty and restrictions affecting performance of duty. Personnel policy 825-6 and personnel policy 320-3 respectively. This was a significant revamp on both to include best practices from other departments, some updated terminology that aided to make that read a little bit easier, and some efficiencies relating to the sending of sensitive medical information between our members and HR. If there's any question, we'd recommend approval on that one.
Can I just ask questions relating to this? Because I'm a defendant in all types of lawsuits relating to this across the street and probably here too. I mean, do we have, not that I have not looked at the labor contract lately, but have we heard either from labor or others who speak on behalf of officers or purport to do so, any concerns relating to this policy change or any other issues?
As part of our policy approval process, I guess is the best word for it, all of our policies are sent out for concurrence, and those are given to the labor unions. And then we will have, once that concurrence, we'll get all the input, and we will then, the staff at Research and Development will a lot of times have to rework elements of the policy, because concerns not only from labor, but it could be a policy affecting, let's just say something that affects investigations, and there may be a detective that says, no, that doesn't really work right. This would be better. So we take all that input and we'll produce a final document, and then we'll have an executive committee meeting. That's the executive staff along with members of labor and others to work our best to come to a final concurrence on that. Most time we get there, there's times where there's obviously not, but that's why it comes to this body for final approval.
So am I safe in assuming that this will not materially impact the department's ability to perform under its bargaining agreements?
We don't believe so. We believe all those concerns were vetted during that process. There was a lot of CBA concerns through this, and we believe all those obviously are vetted.
Thank you.
I move approval.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it, so moved.
Next project is project number 1417. It's personnel policy for claims for damaged or lost personal property from members on duty that may damage or lose a piece of personal property. The main change on that is we added some language to include flashlights purchased for members that are not using the department issued flashlight, but their own flashlight. And then in the old policy, we had a $50 cap on other items such as eyeglasses, watches. That had been in place for a long time, not really applicable anymore, as you can't get many of those things for $50. So we changed the language in that to say on a case-by-case basis with a standard of reasonableness. So can't have, if you have a pair of $8,000 designer glasses, we're not going to see that as reasonable. But I don't think you can buy just a normal pair of glasses for $50 too often. So that was the main changes to those.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved in second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Lastly, not within your tab, but on your screen there, just some quick youth services updates for you. The first 4 slides just showing the November DARE graduations. We had to reschedule several in November that'll hopefully get in this month, but these are the fall graduations. We had 4 of them there at different schools throughout the city. On November 12th, we had the PAL draft. Thank you for all those that were in attendance to that. one of their primary fundraisers in a partnership with Kansas City, Kansas PAL Center as well. Our own Captain Renty gave the keynote address at that and talked about his experiences as a PAL youth when he was growing up and how that changed the course of his life. And so just one thing I wanted to report about the PAL draft was during the live auction part of that, there was some floor seats to a KU game that went for a significant amount of money. The winner of that approached Captain Rente and asked if he could maybe take a PAL kid to that, and handed both tickets over to Captain Rente, which you'll see a picture there. He was able to take one of our PAL kids to that game with him. So neat stuff coming out of there. On the 15th, we had a group of criminal justice students, pretty good sized group from UMKC that came and toured the PAL facility, did a question and answer with some of our PAL officers, and then hung around and interacted with the youth. We did our annual meal delivery to 15 PAL families on the 23rd for the Thanksgiving meal. With a partnership with Hy-Vee and the PAL board, we were able to deliver meals that morning. And then the ongoing garden project that keeps getting bigger. I keep reporting on it. Sergeant Fabian from our PAL section was able to secure a small grant through the KC Garden Sprout Grant is what it's called, where we were able to get some soil and some fruit trees to be planted there. So we were able to do that on the 29th. And she said she needed some labor. So kind of doing my duties at the academy, I knew where to find her some labor. So we had the opportunity to have some of our police recruits come down and plant those trees and bushes and move that soil with some other community volunteers there. And then after they got done planting, they went in and had an opportunity to interact and play some basketball with the PAL kids as well. So based on that, it's been something that has been a little hit or miss. I've talked to the commander of the PAL unit. We're going to try to start having the recruits there more frequently to kind of introduce them to the PAL Center and having them volunteer at the center more frequently. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, the 175th Ensign Officer class graduated. They did their annual group run in honor of a fallen officers, where they did their run and their workout. And then there's a quick graduation pic in there to wrap up. If you don't have any questions, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Office of General Counsel, Holly Dodge.
Good morning.
Morning.
My information is under tab F. First of all is the monthly report from private officer. If you don't have any questions, I'll go to the second issue, the private officer licensing appeal. Our request is to deny the armed license application. Happy to address any questions anyone has regarding that.
I agree that it should be denied, and I move that that be done.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no.
Thank you. And then the third item. The third item is one more tweak to Title 17 of the Code of State Regulations. What we are asking for is to put back in what we previously had, which was an option for rifles. The reason we're putting that back in is it was requested as part of all-encompassing security plans, especially in universities, hospitals, and schools in regards to active shooter. It would allow them all options which are recommended in those types of security concerns.
I move approval.
I'll go ahead and second, but then I want a broader discussion, but second. We can.
So you want to discuss it before?
Yeah, I
we move it?
just, it's not necessarily germane to this. So we're in this business because the state, I guess, puts us in this business under Chapter 84. No liability accrues to us, though, from licensees, because there's part of me that, in an ongoing goal to avoid all liability possible, will say, if state law largely allows you to have a gun anywhere anyway, without coming through KCPD to license you or not, why don't we just leave that liability on private institutions, universities, and others, and we get out of the business? And that's why it's broader, because I don't know what thoughts you might have on that.
Well, especially in this particular aspect, what we provide in the application process is qualification. So we have rifle, when it's armed, they go through slight training, but qualification. So it is not unusual that a armed officer applicant has never touched a gun until they come for the licensing. And our wonderful people at the academy who deal with this on the range are very aware of the fact that this is a benefit to all of those within Kansas City. There's also a minimum testing, which was involved in the prior appeal. So there's some of that filtering. There's also, it creates a directory so we know who is licensed and where, and prevents somebody who is not properly trained from inappropriately acting. Does it ever insulate us against a lawsuit? No. As you're aware, anyone can sue or include or try to create a liability. But there is a very important filtering system that Tammy Gallagher and her crew in the private officers licensing unit work very hard at and take very seriously, that aspect of it, to ensure that those who are out there, who are regulating the public, know what their responsibilities are.
And we can save this for another time, or I can just bother you for an hour to chat it all out, because I even wonder, when does a guard become a guard, right? If I can lawfully stand outside of a place with a firearm, as I believe I can in most of this state, is it when I'm telling somebody you can't come in? Is it if I wear a T-shirt that indicates as such? And I thank you for that answer in terms of the public service that we're providing. I'm just in my head doing a cost benefit of, for us, assuming potential liability that accrues because we trained someone once who we then largely don't have much control over, and who knows what they may do later. Is that just something we want? I don't think that needs to be resolved today, but it's in the thought of one.
As to the financial cost, I can get those numbers and be ready to discuss those. It is a self-funded, essentially, system, so that it's not something we're going to the city to ask for funding for it. That's why as the piece of the change that you see with the rifles, there's a cost, which takes care of, it doesn't completely, but it does take care of the burden that it puts on our range employees. But Tammy Gallagher, again, manager of that unit, and I would be happy to have any conversations in regards to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And you mentioned, and it was in the last one that we just voted on, the testing. One of the things that I thought about during that is they don't give this exact same test every time, do they? They should be, if the procedures are appropriate, they should be using different forms of that test. Do they?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we do.
Pardon me? Well, you need to check the standards of testing and measurements. And of course, I took that class 40 years ago. So I'm sure a few things might have changed. But it needs to be different, in part because of what came up in that appeal, because he just wrote down, 14A, 15C, whatever. And then the next time he wouldn't have to bring in a piece of paper. You can remember, make up a list of my grocery list or whatever, and be able to pass the test. That's not the way we should be doing it. We need to figure out a way that it would be much more difficult to cheat on a test. But I do agree that you show them the test and explain what they did wrong so they can study and do it better. But studying and doing it better by just keeping the list of the numbers and the letters is not appropriate. Obviously, that's cheating.
We will
My
look
understanding
into
that they changed the order. The questions are the same, but they changed the order. So he couldn't remember in
I
order.
I
But we can look
understand.
at adding different questions and
Well, I'm
mixing
not
it up.
saying it has to be different, but it may be phrasing them differently. I don't know. And I'm not telling you how to do your job, except that it should be exactly the same every time.
Thank you.
Now,
If there's,
I did move approval.
Second, and I
Yeah, we didn't get a second yet.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
So,
What?
got carried away. I started to call for the vote. He saw me.
all in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it. All right,
if there's no further questions, that concludes my presentation today. Thank you so much.
all right. Yeah, but Mayor, I think that we should have a broader discussion on what you bring up at a later date. Office of Community Complaints, Director Merrill Bennigan.
I owe him a pen. I went to a meeting on Saturday and I had paper and pen. And the first note I tried to write, no pen, no ink. And Merrill saved me. So thank you, Merrill.
No problem. Good morning, everyone.
All right.
As is usually the fashion, what we're going to do is push the OCC report to January, where we'll be able to give a, albeit raw, but a more concise snapshot of our preliminary review of our 2022 complaint activity. So that'll give us some time to wrap up the next couple of weeks of work. Of course, there'll still be some pending investigations and mediations, conciliations still outstanding at that time, but still we'll have a better idea of what 2022 looked like from an investigative standpoint. Also, I'm just here to stand and say that I am excited about this newly formed Community Engagement Division. I look forward to collaboration with the personnel who'll be working in that division. Many of the individuals who identify with those constituent groups identified by Major Thompson tend to find their ways to our offices. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here for some engagement, some education, some training, and just to find a better way of doing some things on both sides of the equation. Also want to congratulate my friend and colleague, Mike Walker. We came last year and congratulated him for 50 years of service with both the department and the Board of Police Commissioners. Well, I convinced him to stay on another year, but however, Mike will be retiring on December 31st after 51 and a half years of service to both KCPD and the Board of Police Commissioners. So I just want to thank him and congratulate him for his many years of service. And Mike remained consistent. You know, as I walked out the door, I said, Mike, I'm headed to the board meeting. He said, better you than me. So, I'm going to miss that exchange. Also, the Office of Community Complaints, we want to extend our condolences to our former executive director, Ms. Pearl Fane Jenkins. Her husband recently passed 2-3 weeks ago down in Florida. And we hadn't had the opportunity to get anything in the Daily Informant. We will do so. But he passed recently, and we just want to make sure that we extend our condolences to Buck. He was a joy to be around, an inspiration. He's one of those individuals that at the end of the conversation, you're always going to pull you back for a few seconds to give you a word of inspiration. So he will truly be missed. And last but definitely not least, as always, to those in the room and those that may be viewing, you know, we go through our challenges with here in the city, both in law enforcement and also in community oversight, but we do appreciate the collaboration that we enjoy. We have some wins, we have some losses, but at the same time, we know that at the very heart of it all, we're trying to do the right thing. So in that regard, to our retirees, we say congratulations, and to everyone else, we say happy holidays, and we look forward to a productive and safe 2023. Thank you very much.
Well, if I can ask you one question, it came to my mind about the lady who had the situation about the sidewalk and they
Yes.
were parking. Did we ever resolve that?
Still pending. There's some issues. There's some intersectionalities there. That's not necessarily within the control of the department and parking control and things of that nature. So Still trying to identify all of the players and stakeholders there and see if we can come to some resolution. We haven't heard any complaints about it recently, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. That could quite possibly mean they just stopped calling. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I will check back with a couple of those parties who contacted us previously later today just to see where we are with that. And I'll give you an update personally, but also at the next board meeting.
I'm sure with the holidays coming up and people visiting, it's going to come up again. So we get ahead of it.
I agree. I agree.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I have a list of public comments, and we ask you to please adhere to the 2-minute rule. And so I will call the name of the person to come up and then the one on deck. Desmond Logan, is it? Is it Logan? And then followed by Ron Hunt.
How you doing today?
Good.
Thank you. Well, I'm the infamous person trying to control the donuts, but I'm not here to talk about that because I sent you the email, so we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I just come to give some input. I heard her talking about the dog situation. Well, we just spent $17 million on a dog shelter out there, so I think that would be a good place to start for the dogs. And then also, I would like to show Cora a round of applause for the work that she does in the community with the people in the community. You know what I mean? So I would like to just give her a round of applause real quick. Because in order for us to solve the crimes, we have to deal with the people in the community who have more input than a lot of people. I'm running for city council, 5th district, and I've been going to a lot of meetings. What I've learned is you have a bunch of well-spoken people who are in control of the funds that are not getting where they're supposed to be. So we just need more people from the inner, that's dealing with the bullets, that's dealing with the gunshots, dealing with the thefts, dealing with a whole lot of stuff. I don't know if y'all understand, within the last 5 years, a lot of the homelessness and a lot of mentally ill people have been dropped off to the inner city. Me personally being a tow truck driver, me being in the community as much as I personally watched Independence Police drop off a lot of mentally ill patients throughout the city. I've personally seen this. This is nothing that I heard. These are things I've seen. So these are some of the things that some of our police officers that we already are understaffed have to deal with on top of the things that's going on in our community. So if some kind of way y'all can figure that out and get those people back where they came from so we can deal with our crazies, because we deal with a lot of people who have mentally ill issues, but we know them. We watch them grow up. We know who they are. All these new mentally ill patients that the police department have to spend a whole lot of time with, the ambulance drivers have to spend a whole lot of time with, like I said, with y'all being understaffed, is just an ongoing problem. So that's pretty much what I just had to say.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you later about the donuts.
All right. Thank you.
Chief, I'd like for you to follow up and see if that's true. I mean, if those people are from Kansas City and Independence is bringing them here for that reason, but otherwise that's wrong.
Ron Hunt. And Cheryl Ferguson will follow Ron Hunt.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, afternoon, Mayor, Bishop, the board, and the commanders. I'm just going to be real quick, but I'm going to be straight up front. You know, the recent news that I've seen about the police department, the problems that y'all having, I'm really concerned about that. And I think we need more accountability. So I'm just hoping the next chief who y'all pick would address accountability and diversity inclusion is that I did get a chance to talk to Bluford, the other guy. He said some good things. He did really say some good things that I've never heard echoed before in the police department. The diversity inclusion, that means the advancement for people of color inside the police department. That is so critical. I'm thinking that you listened to me before when I said that I like to see a woman run the police department, and I'm so glad that Stacy is up for the final two. But I just really want to know that Stacy and you guys know that being a chief, it's going to be pretty tough, Stacy. It's going to be tough if you're selected. And if the Buford's selected, it's going to be tough because unfortunately, as I keep continuing to hear the negative stuff about what goes on inside the police department, how you treat your own members, I'm just really tired of seeing some white folks in position treat black folks bad. That bothers me. And so I got to figure out in my head who is qualified to really lead this department. Who is really qualified? Because if you don't have any advancement for black people, we'll be playing this game. Stacy's cool. I love Stacy. Everybody loves Stacy. But Stacy, I'm hoping that you can make the change for black people because we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the police department. I'm going to be really, really honest. I don't like what I'm hearing about the police department.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're down to 3 finalists, not 2. Sure.
I'm gonna agree with Ron. If you was at the same meeting I was, we're down to 2. At any rate, I rose my kids up with one saying, and I'm very proud to say that all 3 of them have lived up to that one saying. It takes a split second to make a wrong decision that'll affect the rest of your life. I'm gonna bring up Cameron again because that's close to my heart. His girlfriend made a wrong decision. He ended up chasing her, which is a wrong decision. Schwam ended up making a wrong decision to go on the property, which led up to DeValcanier killing him. A split second changed the rest of all of their lives. Why am I bringing that up now? I myself had a split second. I was caught up in the hype of what happened, but I had an opportunity to ask a question, and I missed that opportunity. One of the things that was stated is that I would not work for a racist organization. Your own officers have brought up the fact that KCPD has racist tendencies. So how is that going to ever be addressed if we keep looking at the elephant in the room and we do nothing to change it? It's your turn to make a decision, and I hope you don't make a split-second one. Take some time to really ponder what's good for the city. As the prosecutor's office pointed out, the buy and bust. Kansas City is 319 square miles. The buy and bust only take place in 20% of that area, which is the Black community. I can guarantee the Black folks ain't the only ones doing drugs. We have a racism problem in this city, and it exists in KCPD. That needs to change. Make the right decision.
Councilwoman Teresa Law, followed by Doug Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate you allowing me to speak today. This is the second time I've been in a couple of months, but I felt like I needed to be here today specifically to address the letter and the comments that were put forward by an attorney that you all had hired and was working in the police attorney's office. I don't know this gentleman. I've never talked to him, but I read through his letter. I read through all of the allegations that he had put forward, and I literally was appalled, which is hard for those of us on the city council because we deal with this on a daily basis. We get a lot of extraordinary mail and letters and emails, but this was an attorney who had been here for several months and had observed what had been going on in the chief's office and the chief's attorney's office. There's been no bigger supporter of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department than myself on the city council for 16 years now. And I continue to support the rank and file of this division or this department. It's clear recently from the recently released now public information that Holly Dodge and Joe Maben specifically targeted my son for criminal prosecution over the objection of other department personnel. It is clear that Holly Dodge's actions and threats of removal of his entire pension, which were not true absent the board action, coerced him to retire after 26 years of service. And this needs to be remedied, not so much for David, but for other officers. We have to stand behind our officers and not abandon them based on bad legal advice. It's up to the board to act. And I implore you to please investigate the allegations that have been put forward in this attorney's letter and the evidence he has listed in a 380-page report that he's put forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Schaefer, the Community Christian Church representative to the Board of Moore Squared. Last month, I appealed to the 4 of you governor-appointed commissioners to resign in protest of the violation of the American principle of no taxation without representation. I would trust Mayor Lucas to handle negotiations for the civil settlements for the assassination of Cameron Lamb and for other misconduct under your neglectful watch. But seeing you still here, my purpose is to confront you commissioners directly with the illegitimacy of your power to appoint the next field boss of the colony of Kansas City. You were co-conspirators in the Luke DeMeyer raid on the city budget. The unconstitutional directive to have Kansas City give over 25% of its revenue to the police department. And then you were complicit in the ballot fraud by which the voters of the state were misled to vote for Amendment 4. Kansas City voters who knew better rejected the ballot measure by a strong majority. I remind you of the inscription on the Missouri State Capitol building. The well-being of the people is the supreme law. We know what's good for Kansas City ourselves, not the people of Hannibal, Maryville, Moberly, and Bolivar. Some of you were appointed by a governor who was first elected by the vote of one man, Eric Greitens. 2 of you are here by the authority vested in you by no one, sitting here on expired terms. That's you, right, Mr. Wagner? Anybody else want to raise your hand about being on an expired term? And yet, you have the audacity to select the next chief on behalf of the governor. To be clear, you sit to decide about us solely by your naked authority.
Reverend Scott, is that Myers and Stan Morgan?
Stan Morgan. We want to begin a dialogue with you and everyone else who is involved in deciding how policies happen in the city.
Reverend Scott Myers, we've sent each of you 2 certified letters asking for an initial dialogue.
In this life and death matters for citizens and police, we believe dialogue is a creative way to deepen an understanding and create paths to solutions.
Dialogue is a discipline which has proved successful in much larger global conflicts.
In our 2 letters to you, we mentioned 7 principles for discussion. Let's hear what each others are thinking about For example,
becoming a persistent voice for common sense gun reform and a ban on sale of assault weapons, which will help police too.
begin a process of ending white supremacy culture in policing in Kansas City.
Create healing, safe, accessible mental health care for police officers who have encountered violence, used violence, or encountered the aftermath of violence in their work.
Create a collective will and plan to hire and promote more Black and brown officers.
One of the members of our group is a family member of the first Black police chief in Kansas City, Kansas.
Another let his girlfriend out of the car to buy ice cream in the plaza, and when she came out with the ice cream, found him handcuffed as the alleged getaway driver in a robbery of the ice cream store.
We want to talk with you, listen to each other, sustain dialogue, find a way.
We can have an initial dialogue with 3, 4, or all of you. This will help everyone in Kansas City.
As the great Rabbi Hillel said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me?
If I am only for myself, then what have I become?
If not now, when?
If not now for dialogue, when? Thank you.
Thank you. And I have received one of your letters, and you are on my list to get a schedule. Last speaker, Pat Clark.
Good morning, Mayor, Commission, and all.
Morning.
I didn't come here to speak, but there was a conversation from Commissioner Dean about the call takers. I wanted to say this because my son was a call taker, and he shared with me some of the things that he went through. You know, you talked about training, Commissioner. Well, it's hard to train somebody on feelings. My son shared with me that he had nightmares, you know, from people calling saying, help me. And he's on the other end trying to figure out how he can help, you know, trying to get officers to a place where somebody needs help, you know, and the officers are coming from Grandview. You know, it's a hell of a thing, especially when you got to take that home with you, you know. So we're living in a time right now where the biggest sign outside of a stop sign right now is help wanted, you know, and that's what we're going through right now. So you talk about training. I think that probably would be helpful to make sure that's one of the first things that you do with this person is try to train them on what they're about to go into. Bringing somebody in off the street and the first call they get is help me.
Yeah.
Wow. 9 out of 10, you probably don't expect that person to come back to work tomorrow. So that's my comment. I didn't want to go into everything else because this is Kansas City. You say it all the time, Mayor. This is Kansas City. So we're going to have to deal with the hand that we're being dealt. We're just going to have to be a community and work together to make sure that this happens. I came on behalf of the community engagement team because Corey Thompson's doing a hell of a job over there, and I appreciate being a part of that. Thank you.
So your son resigned from?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He couldn't take it. He couldn't take it. You know, when you talk about a Black male that grows up in a Black community and somebody calls you, it's one thing for a sister or a brother call you and say help. and you go right there. But when you at work and you taking a phone call and you got to rely on somebody else trying to get there, So, Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm Jacqueline Cudahy again. I wanted to respond to a couple questions you guys had about the TIP process. I'm also on the board of the Crime Stoppers organization, which is part of the Crime Commission here. And you mentioned about getting out information to people so they know how the process works, the tip amount, and so forth. There's a lot more media, I guess, requests that we're trying to get this information out, especially to schools with a QR code where they can report tips. So there's a lot of education being done in the schools at this point, but also to the general public. Cynthia Newsom was at our last meeting. She's from Channel 41. So she's wanting to learn about this and try to highlight this process as well. It is separate from the police department. It is totally anonymous. And we are trying to get, here's the tip amount, here's how it works, here's how you can participate. We get a lot of tips, but you'd be surprised at it's a low percentage of people who actually come to collect the tip money. Several reasons for that. One is they probably don't want to be walking around with a lot of cash. Sometimes they just want to provide a tip and help solve a crime. But I have asked our president of the board and the coordinator to try to get on your next agenda so they can talk to you about that program, how it's working, tip volume, that kind of thing.
But what we were talking about today is that the people that spoke to us on Saturday said, we see a lot of the ads about the tip program. It's the program to protect people by, somebody said, changing their locks, letting them stay somewhere else. We're talking about witness protection, and that is not publicized. I think the tips is very well publicized.
I just want to make sure, because you said the amount and things like that. So it is totally anonymous, and that's what we want people to know as well, that they can be protected that way. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Approval of open session minutes of November 15th.
I move approval.
Second.
And moving second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? Ayes
We,
have
we,
it. No,
you're the chair, but Bishop, I think there was another card. Did we?
Nope.
no, I got everybody that was on my list. Well, but he didn't get here before we pulled our list. And I'm willing to talk to him, or is Merle still here?
He is in the back.
If Merle can speak with him, we've got a pressing schedule we've got to keep today. Yeah, but the list had already been taken up, and so we've got to move forward. Merle, if you will talk to this gentleman, and maybe we can get him in our next meeting. General discussion from Chief Joseph Mabin. General discussion.
Still morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As we round out 2022, a look at violent crime statistics is disappointing. We heard earlier, as of Monday, there were 518 non-fatal shooting victims, an increase of 7% over 2021 year to date. And as of today, we've had 166 homicides, an increase of 11% year to date. That's 166 families this holiday season that are experiencing immeasurable grief when they should be rejoicing and celebrating good times with each other. However, looking forward to 2023, I'm optimistic. This year, we fine-tuned violent crime information sharing and investigation procedures. We've increased partnerships with many who share our desire to bring down violent crime through Partners for Peace. We recently hosted Steve Dettelbach, the director of the ATF, at the invitation of Mayor Lucas, and discussed ways to reduce violent crime. And we just created a division dedicated to community engagement. I believe these efforts, along with efforts of community stakeholders, will lead to a safer Kansas City in 2023. With that, I'll say happy holidays to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Chief, you did a great job being our interim chief. And as we are boiling down the selection process, I think you've done a great job to stabilize our department and just keep it moving forward. And I think all the deputy chiefs are working along with you as we work through this tedious process. But thank you. In fact, we've been given applause today. I'll give you applause. Mr. David Kenner.
I'd just like to wish everybody a very happy and safe holiday and a great new year.
Mayor Lucas.
I will try to be as positive, Mr. Kenner. That was very good. I share those thoughts. Thank you, Chief. Thank you to all of our deputy chief and acting deputy chiefs in connection with these issues over some time. In a prior meeting, I've asked for a report back on litigation insurance. It is not lost on any of us on this board that we are paying out millions of dollars in certain legal settlements, among other items. If we could perhaps add to the list of research back, is there some merit to looking at some level of insurance that might protect our funds each year? That would be, no, you're good. You did it.
I apologize. I have it.
Oh, perfect.
We just got to the radios, but if you want me to answer it, I can, but I can do a presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, sir. And I appreciate that. On salaries and mid-year pay adjustments, we've talked about that in the past as well. I understand from our last meeting, Acting Deputy Chief McCollum had mentioned that overtime expenses are taking a good amount of the funding that might otherwise be able to address those issues. But I believe Deputy Chief, I should ask these questions while you were still on, but you had noted that at the end of the second quarter, we have a chance to kind of look at where we are budget-wise. Kind of where are we, and are we doing that assessment now, and we'll have more to.
We're $1.5 million over on overtime.
Okay. And then in other budget areas, are we spending, are there savings anywhere, or just?
That, I mean, it literally is done today, and before we came down here, I think you may have it already. I think I sent that to the chief's office yesterday, the second quarter. But we are over 1.5 million. And if you want me to back up, we put out an RFP on the insurance. And the reason is it started out at 5 years. Then they wanted 10 years worth of data on all kinds of items. So that was a much larger undertaking than we had originally thought it would be. But we are moving forward with that. So I apologize. I had that in my notes too today to speak to if you needed it.
If we want to just add that for our next discussion, I'd appreciate that for the January meeting, and I thank you for that. And very interested in kind of what, if anything, we have available in mid-year availability on funding. I think the lawsuit expenses relate to that. I want to speak to the police chief process in two different ways. First of all, there's been some discussion in the community and in public comment today that was raised that suggested that we might have brought some folks back as interviewing and candidates just, I guess, as an academic exercise. Nothing could be further from the truth. Each person we brought here was part of I think, a detailed process in connection with us, evaluating her or him to be the chief of this police department. It was not to waste anyone's time. It certainly wasn't to waste the public's time. And I wanted to make sure that was clear from all of us, even I as the one who hears from the public a lot. I know my colleagues do as well. I will also note, and I think Commissioner Dean noted this point before, and first of all, criticism is always good. I have a lot of criticism. I take a lot of criticism and all of that, but I think it's because we're always trying to be better. But what that does not mean is that either this department or its members or these commissioners aren't trying to do our best by Kansas City. And so it's my view, and particularly I'll acknowledge the president of the board, Bishop Tolbert, who I know has worked very hard at very high pay, I'm kidding, not high pay at all with it, to try to make sure that we have a process moving. While there will be disagreements, while I'll share my own, I think it is worthwhile to note that everybody's trying to get to the best outcome for the long-term future of Kansas City, even if at times we may disagree as to the pathways to be pursued. I will also say this. I do always welcome more openness and transparency. I was in a debate once on the city council floor when we hired our last city manager. I've always welcomed those sorts of things. I'd welcome that type of public debate here, whether it happens or not, who knows? But I think what you will catch from all of us is an ongoing interest to make sure that the people of Kansas City know why we're doing what we're doing, and I'll always have that interest in that. Briefly, in connection with the comments relating to whistleblower communication that we received the other day, there'll certainly be things that are evaluated by this board, and I imagine this department, that will relate to an investigation, much of which perhaps not public. I do want to make clear, at least from my perspective, and I do think all of our perspectives, we have an interest in making sure rules are followed, laws are followed, and that everyone believes that they have fairness. And to the extent we can make sure that that happens anytime we hear from someone, and I think you heard it today, we all, actually several of us, talked about the public comments we received, many of which very critical, some of which laudatory, but nonetheless, all were read and reviewed by us. We'll make sure that we do that with everything that comes through the Board of Police Commissioners. And so with that, I think that's all I have to say for now. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Kramer is under the weather, but she's been with us on stream. And any parting comments today, Commissioner?
I just wanted to wish everybody a happy and safe and healthy holiday season.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody soon in the new year.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner.
I'd just like to thank everybody for their service. It's tough, and it's, seems to be getting a little bit tougher, but we'll get through this. So thank you very much, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Commissioner Dean?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the members of the department and the community for helping us in the chief selection process. We received many responses. First of all, the community organizations, 16 different organizations that made a presentation here almost 6 months ago now, and gave us excellent perspective on what the community wanted in a chief. And those were printed out in, and it's large volume, and were helpful to us. Actually, the people who applied said it was helpful to them. They printed it out, they read them. So those organizations gave us great resources that we appreciate. We then had, after we announced the candidates, asked people to send questions of what we should ask on Saturday. And the questions that were used on Saturday were all from the community. And we appreciate the time and effort it took for you all to do that. After the meeting on Saturday, many of you sent us responses, your evaluations of the different people that we interviewed. We appreciate all of the efforts that you made to give us information, and they are being examined and will be used in our decision-making. I thank you for all of that. I thank Chief Maven for all of what he has done. He's been a great leader, and I appreciate your help. I wish everyone a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. As we close this, I do want to mention that we had a great public interview session on Saturday. It would not have been possible without Bethany, our assistant. She worked feverishly to get everything done. We found a media company called Frost Media, and she went over to the Mohart Center 2 or 3 times to meet with them to get the sound right. And it took a lot of work to get it done. It was very eventful. It was very helpful. And as the mayor said, I don't think any of us go through exercises of futility to waste time. That event was very helpful to me if it wasn't helpful to anybody else. And I'm sure it was helpful to others. And so I want to thank Kamiko Gilmore, who was part of your city staff. I think one of the deputy city managers who helped the process, and just, I mean, she's a natural. She did an outstanding job. And the staff at the Mohart Center, they were very helpful. Many of you didn't know, but even Chief Oakman helped us out. He was in the back, keeping all of the candidates calm, waiting on their turn to come out and be interviewed publicly. And so we are glad that we have gotten through that part. It's not over yet, but we're looking forward to a successful end. With that, we need a motion to adjourn out of open session and go into close.
I move that we adjourn this session and go into closed session for the purposes listed on the public announcement.
Tolbert, aye?
Dean, aye.
Who seconded it?
Oh, did somebody second?
I may just discuss it briefly. I think to the extent, and we do have personnel listed, to the extent we discuss personnel because a vote, particularly if there's one to be on police chief, would have to be in public. I would think the debate relating to that should be in public too. So I would oppose at least the motion as it relates to that. As to personnel, legal issues, I agree. So I guess there'll just be a no when we do our roll call.
I don't understand what
I-
you're saying. You
I-
think we should discuss
I think
who
we-
we want to hire in public?
I believe that's,
Okay.
I think that, all I know is in our hiring processes, at least at the city as relates to city manager, we had a very long public debate as related to it on the council floor. It was not in any part of closed session. I think the closed session relating to a hiring decision relate to contractual issues, anything of that sort. I do not read the Sunshine Act to allow us to close the discussion just as to the hiring decision, which itself, I believe, requires a public vote.
Mr. Kenner?
I think it's appropriate to do this in closed. I think we'll be talking about individual background information on people. I think if you choose to do it in closed, it's quite appropriate.
We should then later open the meeting to say who's been chosen, right?
There'll be a public announcement, I would assume.
Well, I believe that we have an opportunity to reopen our session for a public session and vote. But I think that because it is an employment situation and there is background information and other things, that those are always done in close. So we will have some discussion there. And then if we deem it necessary, we'll come back out and open up a public meeting.
I will just say this, I think for a record, right? The rationale for the closed session, I believe, to be narrower than perhaps where our conversation will go. If our discussion is simply, we are looking at, say, confidential personnel information of candidates, and that's what the discussion is, and then I might be with you. I think, however, if it is that we believe a candidate in a very public decision did well, ironically, in a public session, that is fundamentally a public discussion, which I think merits us being in an open session relating to it. But you understand my point, and I won't belabor from there.
So it's been moved and second to go out of.
Who seconded it?
Oh,
Wagner.
Wagner. Moved and second to go out of open session into closed session. Tolbert, aye.
Dean, aye.
Wagner, aye.
Lucas, name. And I think Kramer was I before.
John?
John, we didn't hear you.
Going to closed? Been moved to go into closed.
Yeah, we can read your lips though.
Okay, Kramer, aye.
There we go. Thank you.